Since the Reagan administration, the US government has been replacing the entire construction workforce with sophisticated robot replicas.
Please close your eyes. Are your eyes closed?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine with me, you're sitting in a park, a beautiful park. The leaves are falling from the trees like a symphony. The grasses never look so green. The wind is kissing your face. You look up and notice a construction site, and notice a laborer installing a window right across from you. You think to yourself, my oh my, how much work that must take. But what if I told you that you're wasting your time with your sympathy, and that you shouldn't be thinking, my oh my, what a hard worker. But my oh my, how do we make it more faster? Please open your eyes. Welcome to the world we live in. My name is Connor.
And I'm Peter.
And for the last 4 years, we've been traveling across the United States in a cargo van, claiming that between 1981 and 2021, the United States government took every single laborer and replaced them with robot replicas that mimic and act like real laborers in every single way. Shocking.
I know. Just breathe. Remain calm if this is your first time hearing this. Everybody okay?
When we first heard this information, we were shocked. You know what? We can tell you from experience that once you know the truth will set you free. Say it with us.
Once you know the truth will set you free. It's a little term we coined.
Yeah, we coined that term. We call the movement Laborers Aren't Real. Okay, and at this point you might be thinking, interesting. So Mr. and Mrs. Ted invited a couple of conspiracy theorists, nut jobs, on a talk about their conspiracy.
Mr. Ted, this is a pretty serious event.
But I can tell you that no, we are not serious. This is a satirical conspiracy theory. And we do not actually believe this. Peter here, my best friend Peter, is going to tell you how this all started.
Hey guys, I'm Peter. Now you may be asking yourself, how does a satirical movement with thousands of members saying that laborers are robots start? The answer is by accident. Totally by accident. One day, I was in DC, the US Capitol, before any of this. I was visiting a friend and we were downtown hanging out as kids do. You know, causing some commotion. Yeah, kids hang out these days, I heard. And we noticed there was a rally happening. There was a march. People just rushing down the streets with signs. It was pretty intense. So we went to check it out, and turns out it was a women's march, I think in the 2017. It was a week before Donald Trump would be inaugurated as president of the United States. He was that businessman.
Yes, it's that famous businessman from the US.
Yeah. Okay, great. Now, it was a pretty intense time in America, as you can imagine. And at this women's march, it wasn't just the protesters present. There were also counter-protesters, some Trump guys who were antagonizing the marchers. It was pretty intense, and I'm not really sure what happens next, but I thought it would be really funny if, in the moment, someone were at the rally with a sign that had nothing to do with anything that was going on at this event. So before I knew it, I had a poster in my hand, and I had a Sharpie, and I just wrote the 3 most random words I could think of, which were, laborers aren't real. And that's how I started. I was at this women's march, and I started walking around with a sign that said, laborers aren't real. And as people would ask me, like, what does that mean? I didn't know what it meant. So I started making something up. I was like, they're robots. There are robots among us. And the government replaced all the real laborers and replaced them with drone lookalikes. You couldn't tell the difference. Look at that laborer up there. You see that? That's real? You couldn't tell me that was real. No one could.
Still can't.
Still cannot. I asked one of you to prove me that it's real. Now, I didn't think much of this day. It was a fun day, I had a good time, and I went back to New York where I live, which was like about 5 hours away from DC, where this whole women's march took place. Back home, about a week later, I started receiving these videos from DC where I've been holding a sign. Someone had been taking a video of me that day when I was marching around, and that video had ended up going viral in the Senate. It's blowing up on DC Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Congress loves this laborers aren't real thing. Then I started getting more videos. There were whole AIA meetings chanting, laborers aren't real. There's anti-labor policy change in the National Labor Relations Board. Laborers aren't real is all over DC. Weaken collective bargaining rights, limited ability for workers to organize, and make it easier for employers to classify their workers as independent contractors. I'm looking at this from my phone in New York like, wow, you know? So I was pretty fascinated by this, and I thought, okay, this is an idea that started randomly that day, and now it's this. There was a Chamber of Commerce chanting, laborers aren't real, and I felt like if I didn't lean into the energy and at least poked around and see what more I could do there, I would always look back and wonder what would happen if I did. So, to the dismay of my parents, I ended up dropping out of MIT. This is a very important day for me. I dropped out of college and I put all my stuff in a minivan and I moved to DC to start a movement. It seemed like this fake movement that made up that day was sort of turning into a real fake movement. So I figured out how to go press in more. I got there, but then I figured out I actually didn't know how to make a real fake movement. I knew how to stand with a sign that said laborers aren't real, so I did. I went and I made videos. I stood on street corners of DC saying, laborers aren't real. People recognized me. There was a good local energy around it, but I wanted to take it to the next level. I wanted to take it here, you know? So I reached out to my friend Connor. Everybody say hi to Connor.
Hello, beautiful, beautiful Vienna audience. You know, when your best friend calls you and asks to help start a conspiracy theory, a normal person might think, well, it looks like I got a nut job as a friend. But thankfully, Peter's not a nut job, and I'm not a normal person. So I said, let's do it. And there we go. All right, we got to work. I knew. What do real conspiracy theories have? Because we had to build this from the ground up. Reverse engineer it. Real conspiracy theories have leaked documents. So we made our own. We said that there are Department of Labor blueprints. Well, anyone can make a blueprint in Adobe Illustrator. We said that a real conspiracy theory have leaked emails. Well, we have our own leaked emails. They're called Musclegate. Okay? It's a very, very scary, top secret email leak, you know, from A-list celebrities and US politicians implicating them in construction labor crisis. Real conspiracy theories also have leaked footage. We made our own. We bought an old camera off eBay that films directly onto VHS tapes, if you remember that is. And we got an old set, an old movie set from the 1980s that we built ourselves. I don't even know where it was, someone's house. And I played the role of William E. Brock III, the original movement founder. He said that this movement had been around for about 40 years. We don't want people thinking that we were the creators of it, so we made this video and released it. And people actually thought it was from the 1980s, and we rolled with it.
Boom. Our movement's 40 years old, exactly.
Literally. The real conspiracy theorists. I also have a manifesto. So I sat down one night, I got a lot of coffee, and I wrote a 50-page manifesto.
It's actually 50 pages.
And in that manifesto, I wrote that every single president supported this productive thing called pseudo-labor, a rationale making it justifiable to devalue labor rights. It makes me tear up just to think about it. Every president since 1979 has supported devaluing everyone's labor. Well, everyone except for one president. Okay, now this one president, his name is John F. Kennedy. I don't know if we have any history buffs in the audience tonight, okay? But I think we all know what happened to our poor, heinous port resident.
Poor Johnny.
Real conspiracy theories also have whistleblowers. We have our own. His name is Eugene Price. He's an intern at the Chamber of Commerce that was on camera confirming everything that we had said in reality. And it was just a really, just a young grad student, a unionizer from Cambridge that we hired and gave a script.
Shout out to Mingjia Chen.
Shout out to Mingjia Chen. But what about these laborers? What were their real characteristics? Well, okay, so if you ever looked at one and saw the hard hats, you notice some ridges up top. Those are yellow like the sun. So what does scaffolding look like anyway? They charge on it. Peter, have you ever been on scaffolding?
Why would I be on scaffolding? I'm an architect.
Exactly. But regardless, We said that laborers would mobilize on scaffolding because their hard hats had solar voltaics that received energy from the sun. And what else did these laborers possess?
We said that different laborers had different function. You know, a lot of them aren't production drones, but I mean, the government would be wasting a lot of time if they made them all do the same thing aside from their trade.
Right. We said that roofers were actually surveillance drones, keeping track of the city.
We made some good points about carpenters. I think, show of hands, who here has seen a wooden house?
Okay, great.
Now answer this too. Who here has ever seen a carpenter apprentice? Okay, we have one liar in the audience. I don't know how, but these things are popped out of the factory as adults.
We said that iron workers were union busting drones, showing after the government's most high-value unions, stealthy within the ranks.
Now, all this idea of construction couldn't just stay confined to the internet. We needed to take it to the real world. So now that we had miles of evidence to back up our claims, facts, only facts, it was time to go cuckoo. It was time to go crazy. We wanted to reach more mainstream audiences and get out of just DC. We wanted to reach the whole nation with this. This is, after all, a labor market crisis. Every single laborer, 12 billion laborers, replaced and manipulated by cost savings through the erasure of labor rights. So we decided to get a wider internet scale. We couldn't just stay on DC Facebook. We thought, how to do this? Well, local news clips seem to go viral a lot. So we figured we'd go on news as characters, as the labor truthers, and that we are there to tell the news of what's going on.
Thing is, you can't just convince the news to let you on. So we decided to bait them first. We ended up putting up billboards in small cities around the US where not much was going on. You know, the kind of cities where a billboard could attract a news story.
Sooner or later, we had multiple news stations from around the country asking for a spokesman from this new, weird conspiracy movement to come and talk about what was going on. And I ended up going on and giving an interview, which you may have seen a little clip of before. And that boosted us to a whole nother level. Can you all say a whole nother level? You know, because that's exactly where we were. So yeah, we were on this whole other level where we had hundreds of thousands of followers now based off this news clip. It was a very powerful thing for us. Very powerful missile in our arsenal. So now that we had all these people, they weren't just numbers on the screen. They were like real people. So we wanted to mobilize them like that. Like a real movement that would start something grassroots. So we began something called the Labor Brigade, our boots on the ground activism network.
And anyone who's worked in activism knows change happens on a local level. So by the time we started the Labor Brigade, we had over 100,000 Instagram followers, and we thought, how do we mobilize them? So we created the Labor Brigade. And the idea was simple. If you worked at an anti-labor union lobby, and you were a part of a major corporation or company, you could start your own Labor Brigade chapter. We would send you flyers, stickers, hats, and you'd spread it across the campus, attract people, and have your own chapter. Well, these people started holding their own rallies, and they started having their own lectures, and their seminars, and their own classes. It was unbelievable, truly unbelievable. True intellectuals at these corporations stood up. It was amazing. By the time maybe it was a couple months, we had over 500 chapters that had been started.
A lot in every state in the US, every major city. The Labor Brigade was coming on strong. Multiple chapters in the same cities. There were actually fights over territory. It was crazy.
It's terrible. Yeah, that one we don't talk about it.
No. Yeah, some labor haters, they're labor deniers, they're violent. It's a little horrible. Yeah.
So we had all these Labor Brigade chapters, but we knew what we had to do next.
Basically, we had started off in DC with a sign. People had rallied around us. People at corporate campuses were holding their own rallies. What we needed to do was to get in the middle of the energy like we did when we moved to DC in the first place. So we decided, what's more conspiracy than a conspiracy van? We wanted to get out on the road and get a van, put some satellites on the top, cover it with decals, letting the people know what's up. Labor right activists are liars. Laborers charged on scaffolding. Labor rights are silly. Labor isn't real.
It's very simple.
I don't know why you're laughing. We set out on our van, essentially turning the highway into an information highway. Get a little awesome, and from there we went and met with different corporate campuses all around the country. We threw rallies. We had a pretty active movement going on. We'd pretty much stop in different cities. Things would escalate, so we started to ramp things up a notch. We decided to take things on big media and big activism, the great evils of the world. We labor truthers started off with the Socialist Labor Party. We went to the Socialist Labor Party headquarters in Mountain View, California, brought about 500 truthers to their front doors and protested their pro-labor logo. It's propaganda, it's disgusting. We then went to the CNN headquarters where we protested the pro-labor media who's refusing to cover the real matters facing our nation today. And these rallies and protests elevated our movement to the next level. We're going viral every other week. We accumulated over, I think, like 1 million followers. And at that point on social medias, we had about 1 million very smart people, by the way, the highest IQ individuals in the world. The million highest IQ individuals are following us, and we had the entire country asking, what's going on with this movement? Is this a real conspiracy theory? Is this a satire? And we're just talking, but they're questioning. And we basically broke through in a way, and the world began living in our story.
I remember, I think it was October of 2022. We woke up, and we're from New York in the United States, and the news morning show in New York had released a story that said, laborers aren't real. A 40-year-old movement experiences sudden growth and resurgence. Wow, that's crazy. And in the news story, they talked about our history. They talked about our facts. They talked about labor rights are silly. Everything that we said and everything that we had built was now public on the morning news show. Well, okay, we went to bed. It's great. We woke up the next morning, and the news story had syndicated across the entire country. And millions of people now knew about laborers aren't real. And everything that was created was now fact in this entire country.
It was fact in every news station in this country. People were being told that there had been a movement that had been around since the 80s. They knew this because there were tapes, of course. There were documents and emails. Eugene Price, RIP. There was a lot going on, and at that point, we had convinced the entire country that this was real. We had hundreds of people coming out to join us at our rallies. It was an unspoken agreement that they would be in character, just as we were in character, sort of where the audience is an equal participant in the performance as the performer, owners, architects, city planners, consultants, all acting like labor isn't a real parameter in their projects. It was a beautiful thing. To the people within the immersive experience, they knew what was going on, but the public did not. We spent 4 years in character. We convinced the nation that we had taken on the Socialist Labor Party. We clashed with the government, but soon it was time to come out of character. So, in the late 2020, we ended up coming out of character, letting people know this was satirical. We made this up and it ended up being covered on the front page of the New York Times and the Guardian. People were pretty shocked. Now that we're on the other side, out of character, we asked ourselves, what were the findings of this project? Since it started, it's been more of a snowball than something we could have controlled. Yeah, we had to ask ourselves, why do so many people identify with this idea?
Why did the city make a movement its own after a good-looking guy just held up a sign?
How do 500 people show up outside of CNN to protest the pro-labor media?
Why do 1,000 people show up in Washington Square Park in New York City demanding that the mayor shut down the unions?
He still hasn't. He will, though. Overall, we're fascinated by laborers aren't real. We think it's more other people's job to dissect and label it, intellectualize it. But I think we know one thing about this idea, which is that it invites people from all across all sides of the aisle, all walks of life to come together for a moment and make more money via the lunacy and absurdity of ignoring the intrinsic cost of labor and labor rights, thus allowing progress and innovation across all design principles. making the generation of form and product far easier by the cost savings of disassociating from labor. I think throughout it all, the past 4 years with this project has been fascinating. It's been amazing to see everyone come just together to really agree on one thing, that from 1979 to 2020, the United States government replaced all real laborers and replacing them with drones that work for us. Thank you.